Hey guys, it's Christian Singh here, back from CNH Small Engine for another informative review video about a Sears Craftsman snowblower, or I should say snowblowers in general, whether they be personal, commercial, single stage or dual stage. The one I got in front of me right here is it's about a 1998, I believe, Sears Craftsman single stage, 3 horsepower, 21-inch cutting path machine. Customer brought it over here this past week over here. He wanted the regular tune-up done on. He was also claiming the machine was not starting for him as well too, because apparently he hasn't used it, and for probably about two and a half years. It had been basically sitting in his corner basement for probably about, as I said before, about two and a half years, and the machine has not ran since that time period, since probably about 2012, end of 2012, somewhere around there. Said he wants to check the thing out, so we checked the thing out over here, and we found out he had about 2 issues on it. It was mainly the fuel system had to be completely cleaned out. The carburetor is basically black down inside there, had to be cleaned out, rebuilt, new bowl, need a new intake gasket on there. The other thing was his drive belt on the left-hand side over here. It looked like some kind of a mouse got inside it, because it had actually had teeth marks by some kind of a mouse or some kind of animal got down inside and was actually chewing on the actual rubber belt. These ones have flat rubber belts. What it is basically is a rubber belt that's flat, and it has about 4 or 5 grooves put in the top where it mates to the actual drive shaft off of the crank, and then goes down to your auger assembly down here, and it's basically actuated by a simple mechanism like that. Basically, it has an arm that goes up and down by putting tension on the belt, and that's how this specific one functions, and it basically functions okay in that general regard right there for that. This is as you see in the front on here, it's a manual start on here. However, it does have provisions to install a electric start on here. However, they were never installed at the factory, so it's basically null and void for that. This specific one right here, it's a 536 designation for the actual model number. I believe that's a Poland, I think, but it's either a Poland or an MTD. I don't have my what do you want to call it? My reference sheet chart in front of me right now, but it's either a Poland or an MTD, I think. And it only takes 40-to-1 mixture in here as well too. It's one of the later produced ones, because the earlier ones, they usually take around 32. The later ones took about 40, and I think a few of the last ones might have even took maybe 50-to-1 out there for that, because as everybody knows, the emissions kept on getting tighter and tighter on 2-strokes until basically they completely phased them out. I think back in 04, 05, somewhere around there, and I think that was the last time I even seen any 2-stroke machines even being produced, and that was the last year of the Lawn Boy lawnmowers before they went over to the newer either Briggs & Stratton 4-strokes, or the later, like back in 2006, 2007, the cheap Chinese Honda clone style engines as well too. And I'll fire this thing up here for you. You can see this thing starting and running out here as well too, and you can actually see how these things should start and should basically run as well too, because it's always good to know what an actual running one that it is in actual running shape, or runs as it should, rather than having one that's has like all kind of probs and stuff like that. This one right here has about 115 psi, 115 psi. Basically, you need the high compression for these small engines as opposed to your typical 4-stroke, because anything lower than about 90, 95 psi, I would be extremely leery about fixing it because of that fact, because 2-strokes have to have a lot of compression to start up properly, and basically it basically helps circulate the gas air oil mix down inside the crank and up to the top of the piston as well too, so everything has to be completely sealed up, and you have to have high compression in your 2-stroke engines for them to function properly. So let's get this thing fired up here for you guys. It should start with 1 pull hopefully, but I had it run here about 15 minutes ago, so let's see what it does. There we go. Sounds good, runs good. Augers spin okay down there. You can see a pair of pictures down there. There we go. Turn them off. Slow them down. There we go. And that is what a two-stroke should sound like if it's in good running condition and it does not have any mechanical, electrical, or compression or carb problems out there for that. So shut it off here. It should have that nice that sound right at the end here. That's basically how you can tell if the engine is in healthy condition. The higher it had that real chuffing sign right there, it's basically telling you, well, it's basically telling me that it had a lot of compression right there for that. And basically, you can basically on most machines that you work on for a while, you can basically tell which one is in good shape, which one is basically on its like last leg out there for that. And this one is still having a lot of that chuffing sign as you heard right there. I call it right there. And we checked the ports on there. Ports look clean as a whistle on there. There's no scratching, scoring, scarring on the cylinder wall on the intake or the exhaust side. It got about 115 psi, so this machine should last probably for another 15-20 years, as long as somebody maintains it out there, and as long as the government doesn't deem two-stroke engines to be no longer worthy of actually using them out there for that. So as long as your machine's maintained, you keep it in a cool, clean, dry environment that's like free of any moisture, any rats or anything else out there, your machine should last almost indefinitely, as long as you basically maintain, do the routine maintenance, make sure all the pieces on there are in good working order, like your drive belt, your auger assembly down there as well too. You always got to replace your auger pads. I'd say maybe every 5-10 years, depending on how frequently you use your machine down here. These ones on this one right here, they have the rubber pieces on there. They're basically riveted on there, and basically what you had to do is basically cut those rivets off in order to put the new pads on. It's a labor-intensive job, but it would take probably about 2 or 3 hours start to finish, because after you cut them off, you can either put new ones on there and rivet them on there, or you can simply put bolts on there and basically bolt the new rubber pads onto the actual metal part on there for that. So these pads look relatively good on it. This machine probably wasn't used more than maybe about a handful of times, or I'd say about 5 or 6 times right there for that. So it's in basically excellent shape auger wise in the front, but that's the part where it does all the work, your business end, because you want that part to be working perfectly fine, because if you have any light snow, maybe about half an inch, 1 inch, somewhere around there, you want that to be able to pick up the snow and throw it out the auger chute with relative ease, rather than having hardly any auger material on there for your auger pads. Basically, I see machines that had pad material only about 1/4 inch on these things on here. If you only got about 1/4 inch on these pad material right here, it's not going to be able to throw anything out there properly. So you have to have at least maybe about 1/2 inch, because you want to scrape the ground, and you want to throw up the chute on there as well too. And if it does not, or it is not able to do that, it's going to be basically just like dumping at the side, maybe about a foot at the side, and it's going to look like crap in your driveway for that. So if anybody has any questions, comments, whatnot about this one right here I'm talking about, just leave me a message on my page here, and I'll try to answer your basic questions about it. I'll see you guys.